midnight. The sky over the mountains was completely silent. Then, out of nowhere, a deafening roar tore through the darkness. Fighter jets, moving faster than the speed of sound, locked onto a target nobody thought could ever be reached. Deep underground, buried beneath layers of solid rock and reinforced steel, was the ultimate safe house. The secret bunker of Ali Khamenei. For years, military experts said this fortress was completely impossible to destroy. They said it could survive anything. But tonight, everything changed in a massive, coordinated strike. Those fighter jets unleashed a storm of deep, penetrating bombs. The earth shook, the sky lit up like daylight, and the untouchable bunker was completely obliterated. If you want to know the absolute truth about what is happening in the world right now before it hits the mainstream networks, you need to hit that subscribe button immediately. We bring you the raw facts, the hidden secrets, and the massive breaking updates that shape our global future. And you absolutely do not want to miss what comes next as this story unfolds. Now, let us look at exactly how this unbelievable operation went down. The bunker was not just a dark basement. It was a massive underground city built to withstand a direct hit from a nuclear weapon. It had its own power supply, air filtration, and deep escape tunnels. It was the place where the highest orders were given, far away from the eyes of the world. To even find this exact location required the highest level of intelligence gathering the world has ever seen. Spies, satellites, and intercepted signals all had to line up perfectly. The strike force did not just fly in blindly. They had to navigate through the most dangerous, heavily defended airspace on the entire planet. Surface-to-air missiles were waiting everywhere. Radar systems were sweeping the skies every single second, but these jets were completely invisible. They slipped right past the radar. They flew low, hugging the mountains, staying out of sight until the absolute last second. And when they finally pulled up to strike, they dropped weapons specifically designed to chew through solid rock. One bomb to crack the surface, a second bomb to dig deeper, a third bomb to blast the heavy steel doors wide open. It was a masterpiece of military timing. The sheer power of the explosions sent a shockwave that could be felt for miles. Dust and fire shot hundreds of feet into the air. The message sent to the entire world in that exact moment was crystal clear. Nowhere is safe, no matter how deep you dig, no matter how much steel you pour over your head, you can still be touched. This changes the entire balance of power in the region overnight. Imagine the absolute panic inside the enemy command centers when the radar screen suddenly flashed red and then went completely dead. At first, commanders on the ground thought it was just a glitch, a simple computer error, but then the ground began to violently shake beneath their feet, and the terrifying reality set in. The emergency radios buzzed with screams and total confusion. Elite guards stationed miles away from the blast zone looked toward the mountains and saw a giant, terrifying pillar of thick black smoke rising high into the night sky. The impossible had just happened right in front of their eyes. Rescue teams were ordered to rush the site immediately, but what could they even do? The roads leading up to the secret bunker were entirely wiped out. Huge chunks of the mountain had collapsed, burying the hidden entrance under thousands of tons of heavy stone and burning metal. Helicopters were launched into the air, but the dust and smoke were so thick they could not even see the ground below them. The most chilling part for the high-ranking officials watching this disaster unfold was the absolute silence coming from the bunker. The encrypted communication lines, the ones that were supposed to be unbreakable and active 24 hours a day, were dead. No voices giving orders, no desperate distress signals, just total deafening static. Across the globe, world leaders were instantly woken up by their top military advisors in the middle of the night. Red phones were ringing in capital cities everywhere. Satellites in space were quickly repositioned, zooming in on the smoking crater to confirm the massive damage. The images flashing across secure screens in war rooms around the world left powerful generals completely speechless. The precision of this attack was terrifying. The strike did not just destroy the bunker, it surgically removed it from the map without triggering a wider war in the surrounding cities. It was a loud, explosive warning that echoed across every single continent. The people who planned this massive strike wanted everyone to know that they possess weapons and stealth technology that nobody else can defend against. The global chessboard was flipped completely upside down in a matter of seconds. The old rules of war are officially dead, and a new, highly unpredictable chapter has just started. The sun finally rose over the jagged mountains, but the sky was still dark with thick, choking ash. What was once the most guarded piece of land on the planet now looked like the surface of the moon. A giant, smoking crater marked the exact spot where the ultimate fortress used to stand. Back in the capital city, state television was putting on a bizarre show. The local news anchors were reading regular reports about farming and highway traffic, completely ignoring the giant explosion that the entire country had felt just hours before. The regime was terrified. They were desperately trying to control the story, hiding the massive disaster from their own people. But the truth was already leaking out into the streets. People were whispering secret videos of the glowing night sky were being passed from phone to phone. The silence from the top leaders was the loudest alarm bell of all. Usually, after any minor attack, the regime is quick to shout threats and promise immediate revenge. Today, there was absolutely nothing but a hollow, nervous silence to stay entirely ahead of the massive wave of global changes coming from this historic event. Making sure that subscribe button is clicked is the smartest move to make right now. The mainstream channels are waiting days for official press releases, but the raw, fast-moving facts are delivered straight to this channel as they happen. Meanwhile, the global financial markets were reacting violently. Oil prices shot completely through the roof the very moment the markets opened. Traders were shouting across floors, frantically trying to secure resources because nobody knew what the next 24 hours would bring. Ships carrying fuel through narrow, dangerous straits were suddenly ordered to stop and wait. The entire global supply chain held its breath. If the regime suddenly lashed out in a desperate panic, the major shipping lanes could be blocked instantly. Military forces across neighboring borders were immediately placed on maximum high alert. Tanks rolled out of their garages. Anti-aircraft guns were pointed straight up at the clear morning sky. Everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The strike force that carried out the attack had vanished like ghosts back into the dawn, leaving behind a massive void of power. The men who normally gave the orders were either buried under the mountain or running for their lives to secondary hideouts. The chain of command was completely broken, and in that dangerous confusion, any nervous soldier with a finger on a trigger could accidentally start a massive regional war. How exactly does a military force destroy a target that is buried hundreds of feet under solid granite? And this was not just a lucky shot in the dark. This was the result of years of obsessive planning and the development of weapons that seem like they belong in a science fiction movie. The bunker was heavily protected by thick layers of reinforced concrete, the exact kind used to build nuclear power plants. On top of that, a heavy shield of solid steel plates was designed to stop any bomb from digging too deep. The attackers used a specific, terrifying chain reaction of explosives. The first wave of missiles was designed just to crack the mountain wide open. They hit the exact same spot, one after another, acting like a giant explosive hammer. Then came the bunker busters. These extremely heavy bombs use a delayed fuse. They smash straight through the weakened rock and the broken steel, and they do not explode until they feel the empty space of the rooms far below. When the final massive explosion happened inside the underground command center, the intense pressure and boiling heat had absolutely nowhere to go. The energy traveled violently down the underground hallways, blowing out heavy blast doors like they were made of thin paper. All the backup generators, the secure air filtration systems, and the emergency escape elevators were instantly melted. But the advanced weapons are only half of the story. To pull off a military strike this perfect, the attackers needed the exact blueprints of the underground city. They needed to know exactly where the weakest point in the thick rock was located. They needed to know exactly what time the most important people would be inside the main room. This means the unthinkable has happened for the regime. They have a massive leak. Someone on the inside, someone with incredibly high security clearance, sold them out. The deep paranoia spreading through the surviving military commanders right now is absolute poison. They are looking around the room, staring at their own trusted generals, wondering who handed the secret coordinates to the enemy. Trust is completely broken. Top commanders are locking themselves in secure rooms, terrified that their own bodyguards might be secret spies. The psychological damage of this strike is far worse than the physical damage. An invisible enemy reached into their deepest, darkest safe space and crushed it without warning. The mighty fortress that was built to project strength and fear to the rest of the world has been turned into a massive smoking tomb. And the whole world is intensely watching to see what crumbles next. The hunt for the ultimate traitor is tearing the regime apart from the inside right now. Secret police are sweeping through the capital city, dragging high-ranking military officers out of their beds in the middle of the night. Nobody is safe from the brutal interrogations taking place in dark, hidden prisons. The leaders who survived the massive bunker strike are completely turning on each other in pure panic. When a mighty fortress built beneath solid rock is wiped out with such terrifying precision, it proves the enemy knows every single secret. It proves the enemy is already inside the house. Communication channels between military branches are completely frozen because no one trusts the person on the other end of the radio. The powerful elite who used to project absolute fear are now jumping at shadows, terrified that their own cell phones are giving away their exact locations. This channel is the only place delivering a hard, fast truth about this historic military strike. So hitting the subscribe button right now ensures no critical updates are missed as this global crisis rapidly deepens. The regular news stations are completely lost in the fog, but the raw facts are always delivered right here. Look at the neighboring countries. They are watching this absolute chaos unfold and calculating their next major move. For decades, the dark shadow of this regime kept the entire region living in constant fear. Proxy armies were funded, heavy weapons were smuggled across borders, and quiet threats were made every single day. Now that giant shadow has vanished in a massive cloud of smoke and mountain ash. Rebel groups that have been hiding in the hills are suddenly pushing forward, sensing a massive weakness. Border guards are abandoning their posts out of pure fear. The strict iron grip that held everything together is snapping. Finger by finger, nations that used to bow down out of pure terror are now quietly celebrating the total destruction of the underground command center. But this sudden power vacuum is incredibly dangerous. When a massive beast is wounded, it lashes out blindly, and the entire Middle East is bracing for a violent, unpredictable reaction. Missiles are being rolled out of hidden caves, ready to fire at any target just to prove the regime is not completely dead. The sky is now filled with invisible eyes. Drones are circling high above the smoking crater, watching every single move the desperate rescue crews make. Military satellites are taking high-resolution pictures every few seconds, feeding live video directly to heavily guarded war rooms across the globe. Defense analysts are staring at these screens in total shock. The strike was so clean, so absolutely devastating, that it has rewritten the entire rule book of modern warfare overnight. Every single dictator with a secret underground bunker is currently sweating cold bullets. They are calling their engineers, demanding thicker steel and deeper tunnels. But the terrifying truth is finally out in the open. There is no hole deep enough to hide from this new generation of smart weapons. The bombs that destroyed this mountain were not just heavy chunks of metal. They were brilliant flying computers. They communicated with each other in midair, adjusting their flight paths in fractions of a second to hit the exact same entry hole. This massive show of force has completely paralyzed the close allies of the regime. The countries that secretly supplied them with dirty money and weapons are now backing away very quickly. Nobody wants to be standing next to a lightning rod when the storm is this violent. Diplomatic phone lines are buzzing endlessly as global superpowers try to contain the explosive fallout. Massive warships are moving into attack formations off the coast, their missile tubes fully loaded and ready to fire. Fighter jets are sitting on aircraft carriers with their engines running, just waiting for the green light. The tension in the air is thick enough to cut with a heavy knife. A single mistake, a single misunderstood radar signal right now could spark a massive fire that burns across multiple continents. The destruction of the secret bunker was not the end of the war. It was the loud, violent starting gun of a completely new, terrifying era. The old kings are buried under thousands of tons of rock, and the fight to claim the empty throne is going wild. To be brutal, fast, and heavily armed. The dust covering the shattered mountain is finally starting to settle, but the global shockwave is only just beginning to tear across the world. What happens next is the most dangerous puzzle the international community has ever faced. A massive, terrifying void now sits right in the middle of a heavily armed region. The absolute destruction of the secret bunker did not just remove a command center. It entirely erased the illusion of safety for every single dictator holding on to power through fear. Those who relied on the regime for money, heavy weapons, and protection are waking up to a harsh, cold reality. They are completely alone. The grand master of their dangerous chess game has been violently removed from the board in a flash of blinding light and fire. Right now, junior commanders are desperately scrambling to secure whatever weapons and hidden cash they can find before rival factions tear them apart. The streets that were once heavily patrolled by elite guards are now filled with nervous whispers and sudden, violent power grabs. To make absolutely sure no crucial updates are missed when history is rewritten overnight, hitting that subscribe button is the only way to guarantee access to the raw, unfiltered truth. The global landscape is shifting by the second, and this channel stands as the absolute front line for the breaking facts that the mainstream networks are simply too slow to catch. Every single military superpower is currently holding its breath, watching the smoking crater from high up in space. They are waiting to see if a new, more aggressive leader rises from the heavy ashes, or if the entire regime collapses under the crushing weight of its own paranoia and broken trust. The rules of global engagement have been permanently altered. The invisible lines drawn in the sand have been completely blown away. If the deepest, most heavily fortified bunker on the planet can be turned into a burning tomb in a matter of seconds, then nobody is truly out of reach. The age of untouchable leaders hiding deep underground is officially over. The mountain that was supposed to stand for 1,000 years was brought down in a single terrifying night of precision strikes. The world is watching the skies, waiting for the next roar of the jet engines, because the entire game has changed forever